Get ready for a no BS approach to health and fitness. This is NBS Fitness Radio.
Welcome back to NBS Fitness Radio. I'm here with Ben Agnor. Ben has been a member at our Cairo location for how many months now?
Since March.
Very cool.
So almost 6 months.
Awesome. You're crossing over the half a year barrier.
Yeah.
You've hit your 100 classes?
No, not yet.
You haven't hit the 100 yet?
I have not.
Okay. Well, you gotta be close.
I'm getting close. Yeah.
You gotta be really close. Okay, cool. Man, tell me kind of your fitness story. Did you exercise or play sports when you were growing up?
Yeah. So, that's pretty much all I did growing up.
Okay.
I work in heavy manufacturing, and so a lot of the guys I work with are always talking about fixing their cars and stuff like that. I'm like, man, those are things I really wish that I could do. But I only played football growing up, So from a very, very young age, everything was just teams and sports and football and track and field.
Very cool.
I ran track in college.
What'd you run?
I was a short sprinter, so 55, 60, 100, 200, sometimes the 400. I ran the 400 in
They have a 55 meter?
Yeah, indoor.
Oh,
I also did hurdles.
Okay.
So you got 55 hurdles.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, so I was a short sprinter. I did that all the way through college, and then I got out of college and I went into the Army.
Okay.
Fitness is a part of life there.
Did you know? Like at what point did you decide you were going to go into the Army?
Well, so I went to school at West Point, which is one of the military academies.
Okay, so you were doing track at West Point.
Yeah,
okay,
so I got recruited to run at West Point. I did, and then when you graduate from a place like that, you commission into the Army, and that's what you do.
How was that? Like, how was going? What was the college experience like going to a military academy and playing sports?
Man, it was tough.
Yeah.
I had friends who played sports in college, and, from everything that I could gather, my practice was every bit as long as theirs, except we had different classes that we took and different number of hours that we took, and teachers expected different things out of us.
100%.
I think on average, I took 25 credit hours of a semester.
Wow.
And then I also had between 3.5 and 4.5 hours of practice every day. So you'd wake up at, 5 o'clock in the morning, you'd have formation and everything like that, do breakfast, and then you'd have class from 7:30 until maybe 8 o'clock until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I'd have practice until 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, run and grab some food, go up to the room, and then
study.
You're like, well, God, I got 8 hours before I have to be awake again, and I got like 14 hours worth of homework. Like, what's not getting done tonight?
Yeah.
Well, all of it? Cool, I'm going to bed.
Was there leniency at all as an athlete, or just none? I mean, I can imagine.
Nah, I mean, everybody. It's one of those places where there's, you're training to become a part of the military, and so enforcing standards, things have to be kind of across the board. And so even though people have different schedules and different requirements, everybody's expected to meet expectations.
Yeah.
And so whether you have practice or not, everybody who goes to school at a place like that, they all play some type of sports, whether it's intramurals or it's like varsity athletics, like your NCAA, folks. So everybody's got some type of practice, but everybody's also got classes and homework, and you're just kind of expected to do what you're supposed to do, regardless of what else is going on.
Is there PT that's done outside of sports? Is there PT requirements as well?
Yeah. So you take the Army physical fitness test at West Point. You take the Army physical fitness test, and the Naval Academy or Air Force.
Yeah, you're doing theirs. Yeah.
But periodically you'll have company PT sessions and stuff like that, where your whole team will get together and everybody will go for a big long run, and do a bunch of push-ups or go for a ruck or something like that. That's definitely a very important part of the lifestyle, and everybody's going to be involved in some way or another.
Is there any considerations, like if you have a meet like that overlaps that at all? Like if you have if it's like, hey, you have a ruck today, you're like, man, I got a meet tomorrow I got to run at.
Yeah. So Yeah, when it comes to stuff like that, yeah, for sure there are.
Okay.
There are like there's a little bit of difference there.
Okay.
Say, oh, okay, well, we're doing this just for general building camaraderie and morale, trying to make sure that everybody's working on their fitness at the same time. But this guy does have competition, and like, he's going to have the day off.
Gotcha.
You got other things that you can do.
Is there, if you're not in doing varsity athletics, is there like regular PT that's like required of you?
Yeah. We had a gym facility, and it's free. It's just this massive building. It's 3 stories, everything from like basketball courts and like racquetball courts and like big giant gym, cardio rooms, yoga rooms and stretching. I mean, like anything that you could want is inside this gym. And during any of your free time hours, it's kind of an expectation that, everybody's taking some time to go in there and get some work done.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. So what happens after West Point? You obviously commissioned to the Army.
Yeah. So I went into the Army, ended up back at Fort Hood, which is where I wanted to be. I was with the 1st Cavalry Division. I was there for a total of about five years, deployed a couple of times, and after second deployment said, man, we probably need to change directions a little bit. Yeah. So,
and what were you doing?
So I was a combat engineer.
Okay.
We did a lot of route clearance patrols, ordnance disposal. We supported a lot of different types of movements through our area. Yeah. Anything that had to do with explosives and ordnance and stuff like that, we were involved in some way or another. Gotcha, so it was blowing stuff up or going and trying to like analyze it and take it apart so it doesn't blow up.
Gotcha.
We were involved in a lot of that.
Did you ever get to drive that giant thing with the, I can't remember what it's called. It's like the rotary tool that just blows up IEDs.
Yeah, it's a mine roller.
Okay. Yeah.
So
that seems like the scariest job on the planet.
It can be. It definitely can be.
It's like,
yeah, those are mine rollers, and about the first half of a vehicle convoy has mine rollers, and they drive on opposite sides of the road, staggered from each other, to make sure that if there's something there, somebody in the front of the convoy is going to hit it.
That's the point.
That's the point.
Your job is to hit the mine.
Yeah, that's the point. But the idea also is that with just the way that demolitions works, there's blast pressure and heat and stuff involved. That's what damages everything. So if things are far enough away and whatever, then when it blows up, most of the time it's big, loud cloud of smoke, maybe some fire. But the worst thing that's going to happen is shockwave. Maybe you're hearing or you get a headache or something, but everybody's physically okay.
Gotcha.
Not to mention we drive these giant, massive trucks that do the trick for the most part.
Yeah. Did you get to drive one?
Yeah, I've driven one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cool. There's so many different opportunities that you got. I was a platoon leader, and so I'm constantly talking with my guys and trying to find ways to just experience a little bit of everything. I've sat in the gunner's turret.
Nice.
I've driven. It's all cool.
Very cool.
It's cool.
All right. So eventually, after 2 years of deployment, you're like, I'm looking for something different here. What'd you do?
I went to a hiring conference in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was like we went to this hotel, and there was just like a million companies that showed up, and they all had like one hotel room, and it was kind of like speed dating, except with companies and hiring stuff. Yeah. So it's like you have this schedule, and you just go down the hallway.
Was it for military people, or is it just open to everyone?
The majority of us were military transitions. It was like one of those headhunter kind of deals. Yeah. But yeah, so it's just like every 30 minutes you're like, okay, thanks a lot. Have a nice day. Next. And you go to the next hotel room and you sit down with them. So, I ended up interviewing with a whole bunch of really great companies. The one that kind of stuck out to me the most was a steel manufacturer called Nucor.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, I really liked them. The culture and stuff like that, stuff I'm interested in. It's very science and physics-y. Yeah. And so that's stuff I'm interested in. And so said, hey, cool. Took a job as a process engineer, went out to Utah. They got a plant site out there. And then moved out here to Memphis from there.
Very cool.
Doing the same company.
Nice. What was like kind of your exercise routine once you commissioned? Like once you stopped playing sports, how did you transition?
Well, I think a lot of that was just taking knowledge and experience from like what those workouts felt like, and because you don't have a regimen anymore.
Right.
You don't have somebody who's planning out your cycles and doing all that for you. So it's just kind of you're using your own time and you're developing your own plan to fit your own schedule and your own routine. It's just like being an adult, right?
Yeah.
Like mommy and daddy aren't here anymore, so it's on you. I think the majority of what I did, I just went into a big weights type of thing. So like I was constantly in there lifting.
Gotcha.
Didn't really work on cardio. I was a short sprinter, so I hated cardio anyway. Anything more than like 60 seconds or a minute and a half of cardio at a time is too much. So I was in there just trying to throw plates and bars.
Did you keep sprinting at all, or you're like, I'm done?
We did a lot of long distance running. That's like a unit type of deal. And so I did not spend a whole lot of time sprinting. I felt like, God, I spend enough time running up and down the street. I'm going to just get some more squats and call that good.
What about on deployment?
Yeah, deployment's a little bit different. We actually, in Iraq, we were in Mosul, which is the northern capital of Iraq. The FOB that we were at was actually pretty well built up, and they had like this little gym facility that was already there, so we used that. But in Afghanistan, we were at this outpost, and there was not very much there.
Gotcha.
So we called it the prison, and it's like this concertina wire, fence that just went this little perimeter. We had a giant tire in there, and like a whole bunch of random rusted shit. And, we go in there, just move things around. It wasn't. Oh, it was so janky. So we were just kind of trying to make ends meet. Did what we could.
Was there, when you're trying to get your training done while, being at war, is there concerns about like being fatigued from training out in the field? Like, how did you kind of navigate all that?
Yeah, for sure. But I think for the majority of us, we spent a lot of time working out.
Okay.
And I think that there's definitely the concern about being fatigued and then also going out on patrol because you're carrying a lot of gear. It's heavy. You don't ever know how far it's going to end up being and how long you're going to end up being out there. And you don't know what's going to happen along the way. And so there's always that concern. But at least you can lean on, but we're preparing physically to be able to handle, what comes. In addition to that, I think it was also a way for a lot of people to manage stress. You're far away from home. There's no birthdays, there's no anniversaries, there's no Christmas, Thanksgiving. It's like every holiday of the year. There's not that for one whole year's worth of it. People are going on and living their lives without you. And every day you go out and there's just a completely different set of questions that need answered. And some days just suck worse than others. And sometimes you feel all alone, and the only guys you got, who understand are the ones who you're with. So that's an extra reason to hang out with them. Let's go to the gym and we'll just talk about it, hang out. So there's a bunch of reasons, why you go out and do it. I think that physical fatigue and being too tired and stuff like that is a concern, but I think we just looked at it for a whole bunch of different reasons and said it's more worth it for us to do it than not.
100%. Okay, so you joined from New Corps. Now you don't have the structure of the military. Did you keep training?
Yeah, I did for a little bit.
Okay. Were you doing the same stuff?
No, very different.
Okay.
So we didn't have a really good like gym facility that was in. So I lived in North Logan, Utah, which is where like Utah State is.
Okay.
So I had this really, really great big nice gym that was there, but all the athletes used it. Everything else was just kind of like, if you want to do fitness, there's all these hills and mountains everywhere. It's all public land out there.
Gotcha. So you didn't have access to the gym?
No, I won't say that I didn't have access to it, but I'll say that like the distance I had to drive in order to go and get to it is like, it was more worth it for me and my wife, Britt, to just go and we take our dog and go walk up, to the ridge and go hang out on the side of the mountain and look at the view. So we did stuff like that a lot.
Okay.
We did that whenever we had time, but it was a new job and it was my first time doing a job outside the Army. There wasn't the schedule that somebody was making me do anymore. So I chose to try and really dive into that and take that really seriously. I didn't have as much free time as I probably would have liked better.
Yeah.
But I also didn't use my free time near as well. I got like 4 herniated discs in my back from, whether you want to call it track or the Army or whatever. I got nerve blocks and stuff like that, and was doing PT and put all this together and just said, man, you know what? My back just hurts. I'm just going to take a little bit of time off and just see if it feels better. Well, then, fast forward, 5 years, and here I am in Memphis, get out of the shower, look at myself in the mirror, like, man, you're a piece of shit. You're just in terrible shape.
So you just like kind of just slowly kind of fell out of the rhythm.
Yeah, I mean, things, over a 5-year period is still amazing to think how fast stuff can still move. We had 2 kids. We moved from Utah to Memphis for different jobs. My wife, Britt, she went from being in college, getting an education degree to, starting to teach in the area. So there were a lot of different things that were constantly moving over that period. Yeah. And there was a lot more reason in my own head anyway for doing anything other than trying to stay, in gym shape, trying to stay in the gym and work out and keep up with my fitness.
I think there's a lesson I learned there. It's like, I try to encourage people. I'm like, I know it's hard now, but it doesn't get easier. Like once you get married and have kids, it doesn't get easier. It gets significantly harder. And like, it's worth setting those habits now and trying to maintaining them versus trying to establish them later in life when like your schedule and responsibilities are crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would have been so much easier if I'd just been maintaining this entire time. Then all of a sudden it's like jumping into the deep freezing water.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. I agree 100%, but for me, that was all a forcing function too, though.
Yeah.
Like I hit a wall. There was this line in the sand where in my own mind, internally, I just felt like I'm making bad decisions. I need to stop today.
Yeah. You kind of like had to go enough in one direction to kind of realize this is the wrong way.
This is too ridiculous. Yeah, this is not what I was, this is not how I was born to be.
Do you remember that moment?
Yeah. I mean, literally, like I opened up the shower door and then I've got my little vanity mirror with my sink and stuff right in front of the door. I just looked at myself in the mirror and was like, you suck. You're so sloppy looking, and then, I just, it was probably only 45 seconds or a minute, but like in this little window of time, there were so many thoughts that went through my head, things that I'm so disappointed about that I never wanted to admit to my own self.
Yeah.
It was exhausting for me to go and play with my kids at the park.
Yep.
It's in the summertime. My kids want to go to the pool, and I really don't want to take them because I don't want to be,
I should take the dad bod.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm not trying to. I'm trying to rock the dad bod in front of all my neighbors. Just all these different things. Like I'm not doing enough around the house to help my wife. I'm forcing my wife to do too much stuff. Like gosh, I gotta make some sort of change. Like I am doing all of the wrong things. Like my life just doesn't feel right. And it was like for the first time in a very long time that I kind of came to this realization all at once that I had to like, find a way to go back to something that I was comfortable with, that I was successful with before. And anything that I had done recently just didn't feel like it. It just felt like I was going through the motions.
Gotcha.
So 45 seconds to do all that and just crush my own soul. And then, a guy I worked with, Cameron Smith.
Okay.
He worked out here.
Yeah.
And so I got on Google and was like, I'm gonna look up gyms in the area and figure out what I can, what's out there. And I saw MBS and I was like, all right, cool. This already seems to like make some kind of sense. It's CrossFit. It's a name that I recognize. I didn't realize it did CrossFit because when I talked with Cameron about it, it was like strongman stuff that he was doing. So I was like, cool.
Had you done CrossFit before?
I had. In 2012, 13, like in the military, we got certifications and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
To do like CrossFit, and I did some like light coaching and stuff like that at a box down there.
Very cool. That was at your at Fort Hood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, I just decided. Well, it's the thing I like most about CrossFit was the community.
Yeah.
And so, was like, cool, accountability in the community, people. I like people. I like to jack my jaw a lot.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Let's go do it. Let's try it. Let's just try. So, I scheduled my
Your NSI.
Yeah, my NSI, and then sat with Keiki, and was just like, all right, well, then here we go.
Right on.
Showed up and just said, just do everything that you can do.
Okay, so how was the kickstart for you? Like, what were you surprised about? I can giggle because I know the process.
It's so brutal. I played competitive sports. I was a college athlete, and then I go back to these kickstarts, and it's just like, I'm familiar with all of the movements and the exercises. I'm also familiar with what the weights used to feel like.
Yeah.
They're going through the kickstarts, and you're just like, wow, I'm so far away. Oh gosh. I'm so disappointed in myself.
Well, like now that you're a kickstart coach, like you probably say, like, there's a running joke of like, don't make them puke on day one.
Yeah.
Because on day one, there's like a 20 squats in a minute.
It's the air squats.
And like it kills people.
Yeah, for sure.
And people are like you kind of feel silly warning people. You're like, hey, look, okay, like you're about to do 20 squats in a minute, and like this gets people.
Yeah.
So like if you're feeling rough, like you can stop or you can keep pushing, but like be aware that this is gonna kind of hurt a little bit. And people are like, 20 squats, like that, like I got this, bro. And then like literally they're in the bathroom, puking, and you're like, crap. Like the goal is not to make anyone puke.
Right. Yeah.
It just seems to happen.
But then it happens. Yeah. So that didn't happen. That didn't happen with me per se. I ran track in college, so it was just kind of like, I felt fine. I will say, I was talking with Jeremiah about something on the bike, and we were working on aerobic fitness, and he gave me this thing to try out on the bike, and it was my second 10-minute bike, and I texted him afterward, like, screw you, pal. Like, that's the first time. Yeah, that's the first time I've thrown up doing something leg related in a very, 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 long time.
Yeah. Take anything Jeremiah gives you to try with the grain
I know,
of salt. It's going to be rough.
It's going to be. It's probably going to be the worst thing you've ever done. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, like what do you think about kind of joining MBS and going through that experience? Like, how has that helped you kind of get back on track? What have been the kind of the key features?
Man, it's like fitness. Fitness is a lifestyle, not just because it's a set of choices you make to go to the gym and then a set of results you get back from the gym. But there are like health benefits that are associated with working on your fitness and just, going to the gym and doing this type of stuff. For me, what that equated to was, I was coming and spending more time in the gym, so I'm getting in better shape and, this and that. But I also had a whole lot better energy level.
Yeah.
I'm sleeping better. When I get home, it's like, sometimes I just can't sit on my butt for 5 minutes. I have to be doing something.
Yeah.
It's all the things that, me and my wife share. If she's at work, now I'm trying to take care of all of it. And she comes home and there's nothing for her to do then, whatever we got to do with the kids and put them down for the night.
You feel like it's kind of like elevated your ability to like be an active father, an active husband.
Absolutely.
You got a higher capacity. So now you like the way the analogy I use is it's kind of like a pitcher of water. And so like you got to pour this water out every day. And, a lot of people, they pour all this water out, for work, and they get home and they're trying to pour what's little left out for family, and they got an empty pitcher every day. And then when I'm like, okay, yeah, but you need to exercise, they're like, bro, I don't have any more water left to give. And the statement I make is like, exercise isn't more water, it's a bigger pitcher.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say that analogy rings pretty true for me too. That's about what it feels like.
Yeah,
I got a bigger pitcher to fill up with more water.
Yeah.
I'm focusing on things a lot differently, both at home and at work. My outlook on things is a lot more generally positive about anything, whether it's something I feel like doing, or just like whatever the honeydew list and how much I don't feel like doing, something my wife wants me to take care of at the house, whatever. I'm so much more up for all of it. And being involved in so many more, ways, it's a good feeling, but it's also helpful for, the rest of my family.
100%.
It helps me with the relationships I've got with my kids, and it helps me with the relationship I've got with my wife. Helps us check boxes for things that need to get done in life in general. Then it also helps us, focus on, working on things like our own relationship instead of just trying to put out the fires and all the superficial stuff that goes on from day to day. Now we're able to like sit and have conversations where, we're like going back into our own relationship and work on that type of stuff. And that's all just from choosing to come back to the gym, man. Yeah, it's crazy.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, you gotta, when you like you basically improve your resiliency, you're improving your capacity for stress, you're improving your capacity for positivity. And so like there's the hardest thing that you possibly experienced that day was like being out of breath at the gym, right? Yeah. And so then everything else kind of falls into a clearer picture then, you know what I mean? And you just get better at handling it. So that the things that might have stressed you out or like worn you out beforehand, like, well, you're more resilient, you have a greater capacity. They don't have as much of an impact.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just so funny. It's like the whole past like 5.5 months or whatever that I've been with MBS has just been like revelation after revelation after revelation. It's just like there's more and more stuff that I just continue to realize has changed and improved just as a result of making different decisions and getting back involved in this type of, effort and community and all this and that. Everything's getting better.
What do you not like about the fitness industry?
Man, I think, I was talking with, Jeremiah and Jesse and Chris Garner about this the other day. It was, I think stuff like the leaderboard, for example, that we use. Everybody's got an example of a leaderboard. Right? It's ways to, kind of put yourself against all the competition that's out there, I think it's a useful tool, but it's kind of like a scale.
Yeah.
Right. So you step on the scale tells you a number. You choose what you want to think after you see the number. Right. But that number doesn't give you the entire picture.
Yeah.
Same thing with, working out. So like our leaderboard, for example, that we use, I look at it constantly. Like I'm always interested in where I'm at compared to everybody else. And I'm always trying to do the best I can. But there are always going to be times when I look at the number that I put on there and say, but that wasn't the best version of that number that I could have generated.
Yeah.
Today, I cared more about getting a bigger number to put on the board than I did about the way that I got the number on the board.
Yeah.
My number should have been less if I had done it the right way, but I didn't. I think that's a big problem in the fitness community because it's, like I said, it's a lifestyle thing. I think we both agree that this is a long-term type of commitment and investment. And if we're looking at it as such, then it needs to be something that you invest in that gives you returns for the rest of your life, right? And so the form and the movement, the technique, that all has to be there before you progress to the next. And the level method's really great because, it really forces coaches to try and emphasize that and athletes to try and understand and develop a certain way. But I think in general, the fitness community gets really carried away focusing on, like all the influencers that are out there, all the stories about, like your companies like Gymshark and whatever that are promoting all of like, the sexiest, biggest, most unbelievable, athletes and muscles you've ever seen in your life. It's just ridiculous. That's not achievable for most people. It's not even achievable for a lot of the people who you see doing it because they're not even doing it naturally.
Yeah.
So this is something that I think has to be an honest investment on the part of the athlete. I think it has to be taken really seriously, and there are lots of reasons to buy into the gimmicks and the marketing side of how that business machine moves.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but yeah, I think that's the biggest problem is like the superficial. What do you see, and people get jealous and trying to chase after unrealistic stuff.
Yeah, it's a good point. I look at it like it's hard to have long-term perspective when you have zero experience. I mean, like, if you've trained for a decade or two, like, it's easy to kind of go like, okay, well, over the next 5 years, like, this is kind of or next 10 years, I'm kind of project out 30 years. Like, it's somewhat easy to do that. But like, if you've never trained at all, like me asking you, like, what do you want the next 30 years look like? It's like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
So then your focus just is forced to be much more narrow. And then, so from a marketing standpoint, it's like, well, I can target that focus, right?
Right.
And so, and I think it's worth. I mean, you want to build momentum, so you want to kind of set short-term goals, make progress, build that momentum, and can kind of keep it going. But then you have a lot of marketing that's just completely focused on only short-term goals. And so what you end up having is sacrificing long-term consistency and long-term health and fitness for like these short-term goals. And like one of my ways I like to phrase it was like, what's the longest period of time that you've consistently trained and eaten well without taking, more than a week off for vacation? And for most people, we're talking weeks, maybe months, and occasionally years. But the true goal is decades, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're trying to go, like, ideally the answer would be, how old am I? I'm 60, well, 6 years. That would be the ultimate goal. And that where you started exercising as a child and continued through. Maybe that's not the case for everyone. But like, understanding that the goal is to get to decades of consistency, then we kind of have to have a larger picture and say, I'm not going to, yes, you could do this crazy weight loss sprint here for the next 3 months, and you would probably hit it. But you've done that multiple times in the past, and yet here we are back in the exact same spot.
Yeah. I mean, at some point, yeah, you're right. It comes down to responsible decision-making and commitment to taking care of your investment.
Yeah.
I guess. And if you choose to take, I mean, look, everybody's different. There are some people who just don't care about it at all, and fine. Like, you live your own life. It's not necessarily, I did that for a little while, and one day I had this epiphany, and just, it made me the most depressed I've ever been for 5 seconds.
I think it's a bad choice, but you can make the choice.
Yeah, for sure. So everybody's different, but I think, one way to look at it too would be like, you say, what's the longest period of time that you've been without having to, cheat for like a week or something like that? What if the goal would be to get everybody to have a mindset where there's no such thing as like a cheat week? This is just the way you live your life, right? Like, you find a way to enjoy doing all the healthy things to a point where, like, you don't have any desire to do anything unhealthy, because for you're perfectly happy and content doing the healthy style.
That'd be like, maybe you could reverse the question and say, like, how long do you want to be healthy and happy?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, like, do you like being healthy and happy for 6 weeks, or would you like to be healthy and happy for 60 years?
Yeah,
because
sure.
those are two different approaches we need to take.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And I've got kind of a series of posts kind of going in my head that I haven't released yet, but with the whole idea of like physique versus performance, and unfortunately, we tend to zone in and highlight physique.
Yeah.
But people would be so much better off if they realize, like, physique is a byproduct of performance.
Yeah.
It is the end result, not the main focus. And if you focus on performance, physique will come and you'll get both. But if you focus on physique, there's a likelihood that you will burn out, not be able to maintain it. And then even if you do hit it, your performance will actually still suffer, and you will still be unhealthy and unfit, like, in the long run.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. I don't know that everybody also realizes that physique is also a byproduct of genetics.
Yeah, 100%.
And there are different body types, and sometimes the physique that you're chasing and the performance that you're chasing is something that's it is not physically possible for you to achieve, because you are a completely different body type.
This lies, Benz. I'm I'm still holding out for my calves to grow.
I always wanted to. I was a short sprinter, so I always wanted to have like those real tight little ball calves right up underneath my knees.
Yeah.
I always had those really big fat ham hocks on the back of my legs, and it just, man, it's like I'm just not doing calf raises right. That has to be what it is. But yeah, I mean that's exactly right though. That's what I'm saying is. You chase performance because performance is the lifestyle choice that gets you the return of being physically fit and able to make it through life. Yeah. The physique is just something that comes with it, but it's going to come in it may come in exactly the form that you want. It may be something different. It will come, but
The physique change across every human's somewhat the same, and then you're going to build muscle, lose body fat.
Yeah.
I mean, now where that muscle gets built, where that body fat comes down from.
Yeah.
What different people can maintain, you know, it's a zone. I mean, like to sit there and be like, well, I'm just genetically made to be 45% body fat. Like, nah, that's not true. But
right.
But yeah, I mean, the reality is like we are all structured different. You have a pretty good control over, and performance improvements are objective.
Yeah, for sure.
We can literally measure that and say this is appropriate, this is inappropriate. This is the progress you're making. We can see it and track it and create, you know, we know. We can do that a little bit with physique. I mean, we can measure body fat percentages and we can measure muscle mass. We can measure weight. And they're good data points, but no one's goal, like you're not walking around with your percent body fat like over your head like The Sims or something.
Right.
It's like physique is purely how do I think I look to other people?
Sure.
That's just a recipe for unhappiness.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like if I have it to be my goal in life to, you know, look like, I don't know, George Clooney.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to be depressed literally for every day that I'm alive because I'm just not going to be able to get there.
Right. You're not going to look like George Clooney.
But if I just say, hey, look, I need to build confidence in myself. And that's another thing that working out is good for is just helping you build confidence in yourself.
And I think that's the power of the objective data is like, you can be like, I squatted 20 more pounds. It's hard to be like, I look better. I mean, like you kind of do, but then you're like, maybe it's so subjective.
Right. It just gives you something else to be confident in. And the more confident you are about the things that you're achieving, the less you lean and rely on the external stuff and the comparisons and whatever. You know, like when you happen to be a guy who could throw a number on the board and it's always on the top no matter what, that's a lot of times a guy who doesn't even care if the number goes on the board in the first place because they're just happy being where they're at. They just have gotten to the point where they're literally always the best. Jeremiah Parvin. Yeah. And so,
well, that's like one thing that Hoppy and I have talked about is like, I was like, I try not to look at the leaderboard until I've done the workout. We got a couple reasons. Like one, I don't want to be influenced to push myself beyond. Like, look, on most days, if I was like, okay, live or die, I gotta give it 100. I'm gonna give my actual 100%. Yeah, you could beat most people, right?
Yep.
But then I can't function tomorrow, and I'm gonna go home and die. I can't do the rest of my day. So it's like, I try like let me not be influenced by outside things, and let me just get the workout I needed to get and like have a good workout today. Yeah. But that I had to like get to that point and kind of like be more focused internally than externally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100% it does. Because I'm still kind of going through that transition myself. Yeah. You know, going from a place where I wouldn't necessarily call myself sedentary coming in. But it had been a very long time since I had really done like the fitness gig. Yeah. And then having made so many improvements, I mean, I think it's been 5 months. And I've lost, you know, like just gross pounds is like 20 pounds or something like that. A bunch, you know, probably 20 or so has been fat. Yeah. And then I've gained a handful of pounds of, you know, muscle. I've watched my body change
Yeah.
and get more lean. I've watched the numbers and the repetitions and the weights and the times all improve.
Yeah.
You know, so like constantly in my head, I'm trying to digest and figure out, you know, what do I get obsessed about?
Yeah.
And it's difficult sometimes for me to bring myself back to just being obsessed about staying consistent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All the other stuff is just kind of icing on the cake.
Yeah.
You know, but stay obsessed about, you know, being focused and consistent and going in and just busting your butt in the gym. The results are cool, but, you know.
It's that healthy balance. Because, like, yeah, you know, I do think it's knowing what you need in that moment. There are times where you're like, I need a little push. I need a little competition. What did so-and-so get? I'm going to try to push myself here.
Yeah.
And there's times where like having the self-awareness of being like, I need to focus on myself and not be focused on
Yeah,
others.
and that's something that I'm trying to learn a lot about too, because it's like the only gear that I ever really knew, even when I was, you know, competitive. The only gear I ever knew was whatever the top gear is. It was either 0 miles an hour or 100 miles an hour. And getting into all this again, it's just like, man, I can't do. If I do 100 miles an hour, I'm gonna last one round, and I'm gonna sit here, and everybody's gonna watch me cry for the next 15 minutes while I'm trying to figure out how to like get this bar off the ground. Yeah, so I've been talking a lot with some of the guys, you know, like Hoppy and them about, you know, breathing and trying to. I've talked with you about it, you know, last week or 2 weeks ago, trying to find your 80%.
Yeah.
And stay at 80%. You know, today was the first day that I actually, coincidentally, was the first day that I actually felt like I was able to do that. And I don't know that I'll ever be able to do it again because that was very difficult. But, I mean, being able to focus on it a little bit different way and say it's not about me feeling like I'm trying to tip the scales and force it to happen.
Yeah.
I need to find a way to kind of like, I guess, just kind of, oh gosh, I don't know the right way to, how am I trying to say this? Kind of let it just handle itself.
Yeah. Like be patient,
You know?
let the results come.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
It's like it's that again having that kind of long term approach. Like I could push this now, but I'm kind of leaning on potentially getting hurt or burnout or something like that. So, but I can still get there, but it may take 25% longer. But it's safer. It's more guaranteed. It's more sustainable. You know, all those. But 100%. You're when you're a competitive person, especially if you got a history as an athlete. That's hard.
Yeah, it's impossible.
What are your kind of like? So now, as you kind of back into everything, like, what's your next goal?
Honestly, I mean, I'm a very goal-oriented person, and I think it's actually kind of interesting because where I'm at right now, it feels like I've already achieved my goal, but my next goal would be a different version of the same goal.
Okay.
Because if it can make sense, it feels like my goal was, you know, the ceiling, but that was because in my head I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to reach it or not.
Yeah.
You know, and then I did, and it's just like, okay, well, you know, what's the next goal? You know, I talked with Jesse about, you know, my diet and everything like that, and, you know, trying to lean up some more and achieving some more nutrition related goals.
Yeah.
I've got some like strength goals and things. I mean, you know, for like our level method, by this time next year, I want to be black and red in everything.
Nice. What's your limiting level? Like, what's your lowest level currently?
I got 3 that are purple 3.
Which ones?
God, you had to ask me, didn't you?
I'm not like
it's the squat. I think the squat, and it's not necessarily because I can't do them. It's about I just haven't done them.
You haven't done
so
them.
lactic tolerance, upper lower endurance, and neuro and core. Oh, that's right, Annie. I need to do Annie again. Annie can kiss my ass. When I first started, so it's only been like 5.5 months, and there's so much leveling up that you have to do, and like there are the double bars everywhere. It's taken me a very long time to like progress through all of the, you know, different stages to get to where I'm at.
Yeah, mine is flexibility, and I'm like, I'm brown flexibility, and like I'm so far off the flexibility stuff. And like, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let flexibility be my limiter and keep me from getting red. I'm going to do this every night. So like probably for the last 3 weeks, I've been doing the black flexibility tests every night, just holding each position for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can tell I'm getting better at this. And then I like went to do the hip, extra rotation, and like you're supposed to be within 2 inches. I'm like, I'm at like 12 inches. Oh shit! Like, I was like, I must have been at like 14. I was like, yeah, I got pretty good. I got 2 more inches. I'm like, I got 10 inches to go. God,
yeah,
that's the one. I'm like, I'm gonna try, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like I talked to a couple of people about flexibility. They're like, yep, this is pretty much as far as I'm going to get. Like the one area I'm never going to be able to get past this point. Like
I was like, I'm going to give it my best.
Touch my hands together.
I'm not going to miss it from lack of trying, but
Yeah.
I may miss it from just lack of genetics. At that, I'll have to be okay with that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But it's kind of funny that you say that, I'm not going to get it for a lack of trying. That's something that I've said a lot my whole life.
Yeah.
Is like, you'll never fault me for a lack of effort.
Yeah.
If I mess something up or make bad decisions or if something gets screwed, it was never because I wasn't trying.
Yeah.
And that's like probably the most important part about all this that goes on is no matter how bad I crash and burn or like any bad decision I make here and there, like the effort is always going to be there.
Yeah.
And as long as I stay focused, I'll always be able to correct and get back on the path,
I think that's a good lesson. I mean, like I don't mind failing.
Yeah.
Like that's actually a good thing. Otherwise I never learn anything. For sure. But I do mind not giving my best effort because then you don't really know.
Yeah.
Like if you half-ass it, you don't know what adjustment to make to get better. I mean,
Yeah.
you do. It's to work harder, but you can't really learn lessons from not giving it your best.
Man, you're gonna get me on this David Goggins like thing. I'm if you don't mind the abusive language that he sometimes can use. David Goggins he's obviously a motivational speaker, but his mentality is just kind of unrivaled. Like his mental psychological toughness is just out of control.
Yeah.
And his perspective on things is kind of exactly like, what you're saying. The only way to figure out what you're really capable of is to go out there and spend time suffering.
Yeah.
And then when you think that you finally reach the point where you can't suffer anymore, do some more. And then when you think that you're done, just a little bit more. And then when you're pretty sure you're just going to die, all of a sudden the light turns on and you realize that you've been able to do this the whole time. You just never allowed yourself to.
Yeah.
And so the human psyche is such an important part of all this. And I think that, even through working out and stuff, I talked about all the other life-related benefits of working out. But, really and truly, I think the psyche and the mental benefits that come with it are just as important as everything else. It kind of drives your decision-making and your focus on these other aspects. So helps you put things in perspective, stay focused, stay driven, and then, talk your way into continuing to push and try and make things better no matter what the circumstances look like, feel like, whatever.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
Let's end it on that.
All right, cool.
All right, Ben, thanks for coming on, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, NBS Fitness Radio out.
Thank you for listening to NBS Fitness Radio. If you enjoyed the podcast, be sure to share it with your friends, follow us on social media, and check out our website at www.nbsfitness.net. Hit the subscribe button and tune in next time for more NBS Fitness Radio.